everyone, so today's video is going to be a review of 3 Nicholas Sparks books that I recently finished. And Nicholas Sparks is one of my favorite authors, and I hadn't read one of his books in a long time, so I decided to go ahead and then read a few and review them for you guys. So the first one I read was The Longest Ride, and this book is more of a longer book for Nicholas Sparks, but it's about 2 different couples, 2 different love stories. So one of them is about an old man named Ira, and in the book he is on the road driving and he gets in a car accident and ends up really hurt and covered in snow, but he's in his car, but he imagines his wife who has died and she's with him, and then he's like recalling how they met when they were younger and then kind of their story as it goes on. And then the other story is about Sophia and Luke. And Sophia is a college student at Wake Forest University, and Luke is a bull rider, and it's really interesting how they meet. But basically the story alternates chapters between Ira's narration and then Sophia and Luke's narration. So Ira's story is more about how he meets his wife Ruth, and they're both Jewish and they're growing up in the time of the Holocaust, and he eventually goes and fights in World War II and comes back, and then they end up getting engaged. And kind of their interesting story is they collected art. They were huge art collectors. So as he's sitting in the car, which is where he is in real time in the story, he's imagining his wife with him. She's telling him, look, you're gonna be okay, someone's gonna come find you. And then he's like remembering what they did on their different anniversaries, what they did on their honeymoon, all the art they ended up collecting, and just kind of the story of their lives together. So Sophia and Luke's story is a bit different because it's actually told in the present time of the book. So Sophia is a sorority girl at college, and basically she has a bad breakup with a boyfriend who cheats on her, but her friend convinces her to go out to this bull riding competition with them. And basically she ends up getting confronted by her ex-boyfriend, but Luke, who is a bull rider, interferes and basically tells the guy to back off, and he's pretty successful at it. So that's how they end up meeting, and they end up falling in love pretty quickly and just kind of developing their relationship. So Luke is not a college student, although he is the same age as Sophia. He is a professional bull rider for a living, and he lives on a ranch kind of close to where Sophia is. So she visits him and gets to see how his life is there. So Sophia and Luke's relationship seems pretty perfect and flawless, but the catch is that Luke has a dark secret about himself and kind of his bull riding experience. You can kind of tell that there's something he's hiding from her, and that's what's going on. He's hiding this big dark secret, and you're not sure when she's gonna find out. And once you find out what it is, you know that the repercussions of this secret could end their relationship. So it's kind of suspenseful in that way, and in the end of the book, Nicholas Sparks ties the 2 love stories together somehow in a really kind of surprising way. And I did like that end of the book. I really liked the ending. It was really creative on how he did that. So overall, I would give this book a 3 out of 5 stars because I did like it, although I did find Ira's parts of the story to be a little bit dry and a little bit boring. I thought it was a cute story, but it was kind of just, I don't know, it wasn't very original to me, and I just found myself a little bored during those parts. And the other thing was, I kind of had this issue with a lot of Nicholas Sparks books, but I felt like Sophia and Luke's relationship was a bit rushed in a sense, or a little unrealistic, because they know each other for about a week, and Luke was already saying, I am so in love with Sophia, and Sophia was like, I am so in love with Luke, and it just kind of seemed a little bit fast to know that you were in love with someone when you barely even know the person. So I felt like that was kind of just more infatuation and not really love. But it does grow to be love in the end. I just felt like it was a little unrealistic of how fast they fell for each other. But definitely I would recommend The Longest Ride, especially if you like Nicholas Sparks stories and just love stories in general. I thought it was a very original way of how he tied the 2 stories together, and it was just kind of, it was nice to read this time of the year because it was set in the fall and kind of talked about, you know, Halloween and the harvest and then living on a ranch, so that was kind of cool. I liked reading it at this time of year especially. So the second novel I read was The Choice, and this is kind of similar in that it is about a girl named Gabby, and she moves to a new town in North Carolina, and her neighbors is Travis Parker, and basically she ends up meeting him because she thinks that his dog has somehow gotten her dog pregnant, and it's totally funny. The first time she meets him, she just ends up yelling at him and being a totally horrible neighbor, but it's really funny because they end up, of course, like in most Nicholas Sparks books, falling in love and liking each other in the end. So Gabby and Travis end up falling for each other in the end, even though they get off to quite a rocky start, although it was very, very comical and very funny to read. But she already has a serious boyfriend, although you can kind of tell that he is they're not really meant to be together. So it just kind of leaves off at that one part where she's trying to decide what she's going to do. Is she going to break it off with her long-term boyfriend, or is she just going to stay with him? And then the book actually fast forwards, I think 10 years later, and the story has completely changed, and there is another dilemma in Travis's life that he is going through. It's not something you would expect to happen, but again, this time Travis is faced with a choice that he has to make. And it brings up the question of how much you trust your loved ones and whether to respect their wishes in place of your own. Reading this book also made me think about the unexpected things that can happen in life. I know a lot of people kind of tend to view themselves as invincible, and they read about things that happen to people, but they never think that could happen to them. So that was something that this book brought up, and I thought it was an important thing to think about. So overall, I would give this book 3.5 stars. I liked it, almost 4 stars, although I still felt like this one was a little bit unrealistic with how fast they fell in love, even though it was really funny in the beginning, and I did like that. And I kind of felt like the ending was a little bit cliche, but I still really liked the ending. It was a happy ending, of course. But I still enjoyed it. It was still a heartwarming Nicholas Sparks story. So if that's what you're looking for, it was a quick read. It was funny, but also serious in the end. So I would definitely recommend it. So the last book I'm reviewing for today was my favorite out of all of them. This was The Guardian, and it is about a girl named Julie, and her husband dies, and when she's young, she is in her 20s, he dies and passes away from cancer, tragically, and he leaves her behind a little Great Dane puppy as a Christmas present. And it's just it starts off as she starts dating people again, although she lives in a small town, so she doesn't have that many people to draw from. But she first starts dating this guy named Richard, who seems new to the town. He seems very well off. He takes her on a bunch of nice dates, but she also has an attraction for one of her longtime friends, Mike, who was actually her late husband's really good friend. So she's attracted to him, but she's not sure if she should be with him because he was so close to her late husband. So I guess in a way she kind of feels like she is a little bit too close to that, or in a way betraying her husband by dating Mike. So the first part is kind of just about her figuring out who she's going to be in a relationship with. And this book is also very funny. It made me laugh out loud sometimes, and I enjoyed that part of it. Now, this book was similar to Safe Haven in that it does have a thriller-like twist to it. Actually, this one was written before Safe Haven, so maybe Safe Haven is kind of like this one, but I think this is Nicholas Sparks' first thriller-like novel, and you don't really see it coming. I mean, you kind of do. You don't really see it coming. You kind of get hints that there's something going on that is not right, but once the thriller part starts of the book, you are just hooked on it. Like, I could not stop reading this book because I needed to know that the main characters were going to be safe, and that it's all going to be resolved in the end, and the ending is very good, and I really liked the ending. It wasn't that realistic, but I still thought it was done very, very well. I really like this book. So overall, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I know I didn't say much about the plot, but I don't want to give too much away about it. But if you liked Safe Haven and you liked the part of kind of how there was like this psychopath guy who was after his wife in Safe Haven, you kind of liked that. Nicholas Sparks does a really good job of writing from the perspective of just a crazy person, and somehow you understand their twisted logic of the way that they think. And so this was just done exactly like that. It was done really well. It was a very thrilling novel, a complete page turner. So if you like those type of books, like romance thriller novels, it wasn't just like a light fluffy romance kind of like The Longest Ride and The Choice. It was serious and suspenseful, and I really enjoyed this book. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, and I definitely recommend it if you like Nicholas Sparks, and especially if you have read Safe Haven and liked that type of book. Okay, so that is it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Nicholas Sparks book is, and if you have any recommendations. Also, I have a Goodreads, so I will link that below, and you can go ahead and follow me and recommend books, because I'm always looking for new recommendations, and I'd love to connect with you guys on there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. Bye.